Let's bring in another expert contributor to our programme. Güney Yildiz is a PhD researcher at Cambridge University. He's also a regular contributor to Forbes and political risk consultant specialising in Turkey and the Middle East. Güney, welcome to our coverage of this. So we're treading water now, waiting for this count to come out. Would you anticipate, though, that we are at this point where a runoff is going to be needed?
Yes, I think it's very likely, and both the opposition candidate and the government, the incumbent president, mentioned that is probably what is going to happen. And in the second round, I guess my impression is that the opposition will have less of a chance to win compared to this round.
Okay, tell us why, Güney.
So it is, from an outsider, it might seem like a magic. Erdogan might have a magic wand to make this happen. He has been in power for 21 years and still commands a strong he is popular to a certain degree. I think his first magic is that Turkey has so deep political fault lines, like the Kurdish issue, which is securitized, and religious sensitivities, and some other identity issues. But Turkey's real problem here, from looking from outside and also broadly, is it's the state of its economy, the failure of Turkish state response to the earthquake, for example. So these are the problems that affect people daily. But when it comes to political landscape, these political fault lines overshadows these real fault lines, both geological and also economical. Secondly, Erdogan has very strong control over the media. Almost 70 to 80% of the mainstream media, the televisions, are controlled by him. He also has all the state power. And he utilized the state power capacity in his election campaign. So making defense industry, for example, one of the main issues of his campaign. And he also used divisive slogans like talked about the LGBTQI issues and portrayed the opposition as if they are, going to, bring laws that will destroy family values, and also used, divisive rhetoric on the Kurdish issue, whereas the opposition couldn't manage to turn the polarization over on the economy and other aspects that would work against the government. And
Tell me about this prospect, though. If we go down the route you don't expect to happen, and that is Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu finds some extra support. I mean, there's 5% that's gone to a third candidate, so I suppose some of that, maybe all of it, might come his way. Who knows? If he does become president in these circumstances, after, as you say, 21 years of the other guy being in charge, he's got a parliament set against him, because the grouping that Mr. Erdogan belongs to and leads is actually dominant in the parliament, isn't it, after this election?
Yeah, but President Erdogan himself created such a political system that a president basically can bypass the parliament. Parliament's importance is much less the case after this presidential system. That's why he's been referred to as like a one-man figure, like a highly centralized, administration. So if Kılıçdaroğlu wins against a parliament that is dominated by Erdogan and his allies, still he can run the country through presidential decrees, which is also an invention by President Erdogan, like the way he used it. So it wouldn't be too much of a problem. With regard to this third candidate, the nationalist candidate, he was the surprising aspect of this election, because nationalism is already very well served by both the ruling bloc and the opposition bloc. You have hardline nationalist parties on each bloc, and you have a third nationalist candidate, which still garnered 5% of the support, which is not insignificant. And so Turkish political landscape now, the political spectrum is like 50 shades of nationalism almost in every respect. And it is extremely difficult challenge this nationalism. And this nationalism, I mean, is an aggressive one, basically geared against the Kurds inside the country, also to refugees, Syrian refugees, and other, minorities, and against the West. So it is a kind of a toxic amalgam of nationalism. It's not a very healthy nationalism, and it's very difficult to challenge it. And that was also helped in Erdogan's favor, because Erdogan's government alliance is a conservative nationalist alliance, whereas the opposition is a grouping of parties, including secularists, liberals, the Kurds, and others, supporting this opposition. So when you...
And goodness, just to jump in here, if we can be a little selfish and look at this through the perspective of the UK, or maybe the West, or maybe Europe, we've have this enigmatic figure of Erdogan who's sort of played both sides, hasn't they? A little bit of Europe, part of NATO, of course, but also going off to talk to Putin quite a bit. Indeed, he was successful in getting that grain deal to free the Ukrainian grain deal with the blessing of the Russians. And of late, I think it's fair to say that he has been reaching out to be a little more friendly to other countries in the Middle East, like Israel. What might change if Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu actually become president? Would he be more Eurocentric, or would he stay in that pivotal balancing act between East and West?
He will. There will be some significant changes and some significant, continuity if there's an opposition victory. First, I think change will be on the institutionalization of foreign policy. So under Erdogan, it's very much like the top man talking to other figures in different countries like Putin, and engaging in deals bypassing the foreign ministry. And when you have this kind of politics, you have strong men finding it easy to talk to other strong men. Because when, for example, President Erdogan was negotiating with Prime Minister Boris Johnson, I know from other contacts, that he doesn't necessarily see a very powerful figure in front of him. He knows that they can be toppled in an election or lose power very easily. The same goes with Angela Merkel, former Chancellor of Germany. So the opposition with institutionalized foreign policy would help Turkey be more on the side of the West generally. But broader Turkish strategic moves are being dictated by geopolitical necessities rather than personal whim. So there will be definitely much less drama in Turkish Western relations, but still Turkey will need to, pivot a balancing act, as you described, between Russia and others. But also because of the Turkey's geography. Turkey is in the Middle East, and the West is increasingly, gradually withdrawing from the Middle East politically. And Turkey cannot outsource its foreign policy and cannot rely on Western support when it deals with other powers inside the Middle East. So they have to carve up an independent foreign policy in the Middle East, balancing with other actors. And with regard to Russia, Turkish-Russian relations are very multi-layered. You have the energy deals, the nuclear power station being built by Russia in Turkey, tourism, and also Turkey and Russia involving in what I call, in a previous piece, as adversarial collaboration in Syria, in Libya, and in Caucasus between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So it's a multi-layered relationship. No one figure can make a dramatic change in this relationship.
Okay. Thanks you very indeed for sharing that with us. Güney Yildiz is a PhD researcher at Cambridge, just addressing some of the changes and challenges that whoever becomes president or stays president will face in the coming days. We've got